paradrama tales.
Parents missed my birthday for the third year in a row. A week later, my dad emailed me a $2,200 invoice for my brother's yacht party. That's when I realized I wasn't forgotten. I was ignored until it was time to pay. And this time I didn't. It wasn't supposed to be much, just ribs from Tyler, a few friends folding chairs in the backyard. I told myself I didn't care they forgot again. It was my 28th birthday, not a milestone. Still, I kept glancing at my phone like it owed me something. I wasn't expecting a parade, just a call, a text, even a lazy thumbs up emoji in the family group chat. But the screen stayed dark. Tyler caught me looking and asked, "Where's your family?" I shrugged, "Probably busy." He gave me a look I didn't want to unpack. Later that night, scrolling through Instagram, I found out what busy meant. My mom, sister, and aunt at a vineyard up north. Matching robes, wine glasses, captions like "quality time with my girls." It was posted that afternoon, on my birthday. They didn't just forget, they chose something else. That picture hit different, not because it was shocking, but because it wasn't. Deep down, I'd been here before. Missed calls, late messages will make it up to you, promises that vanished like smoke. But this time, it was public, brazen, my family toasting each other while I was flipping burgers for people who chose to show up. That night, while everyone laughed over cards and music, I stood by the cooler pretending to be present. But I wasn't. I was stuck on one question. Why did it take money to remind them I existed? Because when they needed help, I was there. I covered my sister's car insurance, paid my parents' phone bill when Dad said hours were cut at work. They were on my Netflix, Prime, Hulu. Hell, I even let them use one of my credit cards just for emergencies. But apparently the only emergency that mattered was me being useful. That night was the last time I waited for them to care on their own. I made a decision, not from anger, not yet, just clarity. If silence was their gift, I could return it with interest. That night after the backyard party ended and the last beer was gone, I sat alone with my laptop. Not angry, just done. I opened each streaming account one by one. Netflix, Disney+, Hulu, HBO, Max, Spotify. Signed out all devices. Changed every password. It was strangely satisfying, like closing doors that had been left open too long. Then I checked the login history. They'd been using them the night of my birthday. While I stood in my yard, pretending not to care, they were watching movies on my dime. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just neglect. This was routine. I'd become their silent provider, a subscription service with no thanks and no end date. Next came the credit card, the one I told them was for emergencies only. My sister used it twice for Postmates that week, my parents' groceries. And not the bare essentials. There was wine imported, cheese, things I couldn't even pronounce. That wasn't the deal. So I froze the card, called the company, and closed it out. Paid the balance myself. It stung, but not as much as staying on that hook forever. The next day the messages started, "My sister is Netflix down." "My dad's card isn't working. Can you check?" Then we're at the store. The card keeps declining. What's going on? Then the bank called. Fraud alert. Someone reported unauthorized activity. I almost laughed. I told the rep, "It's not fraud. I just stopped letting people use me." Silence. She didn't know what to say. For the first time in years, I felt calm. Not triumphant. Just finished. I realized they never saw me as family, not in the way that matters. I was the fallback, the digital lifeline, the guy who always picked up the tab without complaint. I didn't make a speech. I didn't send an angry text. I just started unplugging, quietly, completely. Because when someone only notices your absence when the services stop, it means they were never showing up for you. They were showing up for what you provided, and I was done providing. The fraud alert came in on a Thursday morning, one of those automated calls from the bank. I almost ignored it, but curiosity won. I pressed 1 to speak to a representative thinking it'd be routine. But the moment she asked, "Did you recently freeze this account?" and I said yes. Her tone changed. She hesitated, then asked, "Was there any unauthorized use you're aware of?" That's when it hit me. They had reported me. Not strangers, not hackers, my own parents. The card was under my name, my money. And yet, when it stopped working, their first thought wasn't, "Maybe we should ask him what's going on." It was, "Let's file a fraud report." That was the moment something inside me truly snapped, but not in anger, in clarity. I told the rep calmly, "No, this wasn't fraud. This was me finally setting a boundary." She paused again. I could practically hear her processing it. Then softly she said, "Understood." That word meant more than she knew, because for years I'd let it slide. The casual disregard, the missed birthdays, the assumption that I'd always say yes. The way they acted like the bills paid themselves, like Netflix, came with their bloodline, not my credit card. I thought I was being helpful. I thought I was just keeping the peace. But really I was keeping them comfortable while I quietly drowned. So I kept going. I went through every account, every shared login, every app and auto payment. I revoked access like a surgeon closing an open wound. They weren't just draining my bank account. They were draining my identity. I was tired of being the guy who gave everything and got ghosted in return. And the silence after I shut it all down, that wasn't confusion. It was panic, the kind that comes when people realize they no longer have control over someone they've taken for granted. Some people think setting boundaries is cruel, but let me tell you, it's the most loving thing you can do for yourself. That fraud alert. It wasn't a warning, it was a wake-up call, not for them, for me. It started with a text from my sister. "Is Netflix down?" Then my mom chimed in. "Your dad's card isn't working. Can you check it?" I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Because that was the moment I knew I'd finally pulled the right thread and their entire comfort blanket was starting to unravel. The next one was more frantic. "Mom, again, we're at the store and the card keeps declining. What's going on?" Then came the call from the bank. "Fraud alert again?" They wanted to verify if I had shut everything down intentionally. I said yes. And then I said the words I had never allowed myself to say before. "No, it's not fraud. I'm just done enabling people who only know how to take." That silence from the bank rep. It was the sound of validation, of someone realizing this wasn't financial. It was emotional accounting and the balance was overdue. But the real meltdown didn't start until their phones stopped working. See, I was still the primary account holder for the family plan. 5 lines, 1 bill, my name, their convenience. And just like I had with the streaming, I logged in, stripped it down to just my number, and canceled the rest. It took less than 15 minutes, but it undid years of dependency. That same day, my sister messaged me through Facebook Wi-Fi, only now. She didn't say hi, she just launched straight into it. "You really cut off our phones. Are you out of your mind?" And I didn't answer, because it didn't matter. They were never asking for help. They were expecting it, like it was part of some unspoken deal I never signed. Then, in a move so ironic it almost made me laugh, my mom emailed me, yes, an actual email in 2024 titled "Urgent. Call me." She said they felt abandoned. The word hung there bitter and unbelievable. Abandoned. From the people who missed 3 birthdays and never noticed the silence unless it meant missing a luxury. But no, this wasn't abandonment. This was accountability. The phone plan ended, the meltdown began. And for the first time in years, I could hear something I hadn't heard in forever. Peace. The next morning, I opened my inbox and saw it, an email from Mom. Subject line: "We need to talk." Not "happy birthday," not "we're sorry," just a cold clinical demand. I clicked. Inside it read, "You didn't have to go this far. If you had a problem, you could have come to us like an adult. What you did was childish and selfish." Selfish. That word sat in my chest like a stone. Coming from the woman who used my money for spa trips while pretending I didn't exist, that burned more than the silence on my birthday ever could. No mention of what they did, just judgment for how I finally reacted to it. Later that evening, Dad called. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity got the better of me. No greeting, no checking in. Just, "What the hell is going on? Mike, why are you acting like this?" I told him plainly I'm not acting. I just stopped pretending everything was okay. He scoffed. "You're being dramatic. We forgot 1 birthday and now you're going nuclear 1 birthday." That's what they thought this was all about. As if the birthday was the wound, not just the moment I finally stopped bleeding for people who never noticed. I reminded him 3 years, not once. 3 years of excuses, missed calls, canceled plans. 3 years of being present for their needs and invisible during mine. His answer: "Well, you never asked for anything." Exactly, because I was too busy giving everything. And suddenly, I saw it all so clearly. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't some sad, forgetful mistake. This was how they really saw me. The helper, the backup plan, the wallet with a pulse. Dad hung up, not with an apology, but with this gem. "You'll regret this when you're older. No, I won't. Because regret only comes when you leave something good behind. And I hadn't left anything behind. I'd just finally stopped being the one who always stayed. That night, I made a list not of what they'd done, but of what I'd let slide. And that list was longer than any birthday card I'd never received. That word selfish used to hurt. Now, it felt like freedom. It was almost midnight when I heard the knock. At first, I thought it was a neighbor, or maybe a delivery mistake. But when I opened the door, there she was, my sister in gym clothes, no makeup, holding a dead phone in one hand and a half-empty Starbucks in the other. She looked lost, but not soft. She didn't say hi, didn't ask how I was. Instead, she said, "Can we talk?" I didn't say anything, just stepped aside and let her in. She looked around the apartment like it offended her, like she expected to see signs of my meltdown. She sat on the edge of the couch and asked, "So, have you had your little moment now? Ready to fix this little moment?" That phrase hit harder than anything else. Like this whole thing was some emotional tantrum I was supposed to grow out of. I didn't yell, I didn't bite, I just said, "Nothing's getting fixed, not anymore." She rolled her eyes just like Mom always did when I said something inconvenient. Then she launched into it how Mom was worried sick, how Dad had to borrow a neighbor's phone, how everyone was so stressed and confused by the way I blew things up over one birthday. I stayed quiet, and when she paused long enough to breathe, I laid it out. Not just the birthday, not just the missed call, the years of me covering rent bills, Uber rides, streaming logins, the emergencies that were really just bad planning on their part paid by me, the one-sided love that always came with conditions. She stared at me like I was speaking another language, and then she said something I'll never forget. "Well, you never asked us for anything. How were we supposed to know you needed something?" As if basic decency was something that had to be scheduled, as if caring only counted when it was requested in writing. I told her, "That's exactly why I stopped asking, because it was easier for you to forget me when I didn't make noise." She didn't argue. She just stood, mumbled something about how this isn't like you, and walked out. No apology, no admission, just gaslight, guilt, and a quiet slam of the door. And as the silence settled back into the room, I realized it finally belonged to me. 3 days passed before the next message came. This time, it wasn't a text. It wasn't even a call. It was a physical letter, handwritten in blue ink, addressed in my mom's soft, loopy handwriting. 3 full pages folded carefully, like it was meant to feel fragile. The first line read, "We miss you. We love you. You're our son." It was everything you're supposed to say. Everything that maybe a decade ago I would have cried reading. But now I was numb. The letter went on, not with apologies, but with justifications. "I'm sorry if you felt left out. That was never our intention." As if my feelings were the issue, not their actions. As if being left out of a birthday, a vineyard trip, a family event wasn't deliberate. The next paragraph turned a corner. "Things have been hard lately. Your dad's behind on payments. Your sister's job is unstable. We could use a little help until things level out again." And there it was, the ask, the reason. Even their reaching out was transactional, not a desire to reconnect, a desire to reestablish access. To my money, to my effort, to the version of me they once depended on, like a silent subscription service. Then came the line that broke me. "We're ready to forgive you whenever you're ready to come back." Forgive me. For what? For finally standing up, for turning off the faucet? That letter didn't bring healing. It brought clarity. They weren't sorry. They were uncomfortable. So, I did what I should have done. Years ago, I wrote one final email. Short, simple, and devastatingly honest. I didn't cut you off because of one birthday. I cut you off because for years I was only valuable when I was useful. You left me out, and I finally believed you. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done. I sent it to my mom, my dad, and my sister. Then I blocked them. All of them, and just like that. Their chapter in my life closed not with a bang, but with the sound of a sent email. I packed my car at dawn. No dramatic exit, no goodbye texts. Just the hum of the engine and a duffel bag of clothes. I didn't even tell Tyler he would have tried to talk me into one more conversation, one more chance to fix things. But I didn't need another conversation. I needed silence. 16 hours later, I crossed into a new state. It wasn't far enough to vanish off the grid, but far enough that I could breathe without checking over my shoulder for guilt. I found a modest apartment, nothing fancy but mine. No shared addresses, no shared logins. For the first time in years, no one knew where I was. The quiet hit hardest at night. At first, it felt unnatural, like I was missing something. No pings, no vague texts asking for a little help. No notifications from my sister trying to log into my Spotify. Just nothing. And then I realized what it was. The waiting was gone. The constant expectation that someone would want something, need something, take something. I wasn't an emergency contact anymore. I wasn't a walking subscription plan with a beating heart. I got a job at a small local tech firm. The pay wasn't flashy, but the peace was. I made my own meals, bought groceries with my card, used only my accounts, and paid my bills. The dignity in that was more satisfying than any apology I never received. 3 weeks in, a call came from a number I didn't recognize. I let it ring. Voicemail. My sister's voice, tired and hollow. I know you probably won't listen to this, but Mom cries almost every day. Dad keeps checking the mailbox. Just let us know you're alive. Alive, I was more than alive. I was free. I deleted the voicemail. They weren't reaching out because they understood. They were reaching out because they lost control. Their sadness wasn't about me. It was about losing convenience, losing comfort. And I knew if I cracked the door open even an inch, they'd try to walk right back in and rearrange the furniture. So I didn't. I sat on my new balcony, coffee in hand, sun on my face, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't owe anyone anything. I used to think love meant giving without limits, that being a good son, a good brother, meant keeping the peace, paying the bills, showing up, and staying quiet when it hurt. But love without respect isn't love. It's a transaction. And I was the only one paying. They didn't miss me. They missed what I did for them. They missed the Netflix logins, the credit card that never declined the phone plan I never asked them to contribute to. When I stopped giving, their world cracked. Not because they lost me, but because they lost access. I wasn't selfish. I was tired. Tired of being useful, not valued, present but invisible. Tired of watching them toast at vineyards while I ate takeout alone on my birthday. So I stopped. No anger, no long monologues, just no more. Now when I wake up, I don't check my phone in dread. I don't brace for the next favor, the next withdrawal. I breathe, I walk, I exist on my own terms. And that's what healing looks like. If you've ever felt like a convenience more than a person, this is your sign. You're not dramatic. You're not overreacting. You're just finally protecting your peace. And if that makes you selfish in their eyes, let it. Because you're not an ATM with a heart. You're a whole human being, and you deserve more than to be forgotten until needed. Subscribe for more real stories, and remember, setting boundaries isn't cruelty. It's survival.